Hi, welcome to Co-Teach University. My name is Mr. Co. Let's get started. Today's video is about updating the investment and debt spreadsheet, and it is for students that are studying to become the CEO, the investment banker, and the debt banker. Just a friendly side note is we'll be learning about both of these aspects of banking. So if you are studying to become, say, the investment banker, you'll also learn about debt banking as well, and vice versa. All right, so we're going to log into the Co-Teach University My Kids bank account. And what you're going to do is you're going to log in with your work username, which means that the one that you are trying to apply for. And you're also going to use that work password. So we're going to do two things in there. We're going to check the investments and check for debts. All right, so as you log in, you'll get this page, and we're going to do two things. So the first thing is we're going to pretend that we are the investment banker, and we are going to check the investments. So I'm going to click right here, investment right here, and click right here, the account. And this tells me three things. The first thing is it tells me who wants to invest. See all these student C, student L, student Z. The second thing is they'll tell me what they want to invest in. So this right here says 75 stocks, 25 bonds, traditional IRA, Roth IRA, 50 stocks, 50 bonds. And this will make more sense further along in the video. And the third and last thing is this tells us how much they want to invest. So it's a good tool to use to figure out who is investing. And we're basically going to take this information and transfer it over to our investment and debt spreadsheet. All right, so the second scenario is we are going to pretend we are the debt banker. And I'm going to click right here. Here's the debt account. I'm going to click right here. And this basically is going to tell us three things as well. First is who wants to borrow money, student A, J, F, and J again. And the second thing is what they want to, how much they want to borrow. So for example, 5,000 and so forth. And lastly, it'll tell us what they're borrowing the money for. And that's important because we're going to figure out which of the tabs in the spreadsheet we want to transfer that information to. All right, so that's super important. Just a heads up, this information is actually is going to be used for your task, both as the debt banker and investment banker. So the investment banker and debt banker, just a heads up, you'll be doing this for your task. Same with the CEO. All right, so let's go back to our task. So we looked at our My Kids bank account. We found out who wants to invest and who wants to borrow money. And let's go to our investment and debt spreadsheet. All right, so this is our investment and debt spreadsheet. And just to give you a little tour of what this is, it looks, kind of intimidating. There's a lot of colors and numbers and everything. Right here, there are 5 actually spreadsheets within this spreadsheet. And they're labeled as investment and retirement. And these first 2 are going to be investments. Credit card, student loan, and mortgage, these last 3 are going to be debt. So if you're the investment banker, you're basically going to be, working with these 2. The debt banker, these 3. And the reason why this video is put together for the investment bankers and debt bankers is so you kind of know what the other tabs are for. All right, so we're actually going to do 5 examples. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is our investment spreadsheet, and the purpose of this is to display a student's investment returns. So this first big thing is this green kind of highlighted boxes, and students have a choice of selecting a basket of investments. So they can choose between 100% stocks, 0% bonds, and so forth. So as the investment banker, you will have to figure out, okay, what did they say in the Co-Teach University My Kids bank account? And just as a fresh reminder, that's this. So you can check here. Now, if we were doing something for student C, we would check 75 stocks, 25 bonds. If we did the student Z, we would do 50 stocks and 50% bonds. So just heads up. So that's where we get that information. This example, again, this is just an example. We're not going to use those students from co-teach universities, My Kids Bank. That's for your task. This is just going to be kind of like an example. And this example is actually going to be throughout all the investment and debt spreadsheets. So it's kind of going to be a place of reference if you forget. So I'm going to basically highlight, actually unhighlight, everything that's not that basket. So that's the basket that we want to focus on that the student has chosen. And again, the student is an example. So we're going to do kind of a run through. So this student invested $800, amount invested, and week A is actually going to be like week 1. But for example, as you know, we have down here more week 1s. So that's week A. Our interest rate, where do we get that? That $800 is how much the student invested. This we actually get from the weekly returns of investment spreadsheet. Yes, another spreadsheet. What this does is it basically calculates the averages of the returns that we're going to use. And we're going to use the actual S&P 500 returns and the actual 10-year Treasury bonds returns from the years 1928 to 2014. So we're getting these numbers from realistic sources, like this actually happens. And other notes about this is we're going to compound the interest weekly to simulate a 35-year working career, because we have about 35 to 40 weeks of school. And if there's a kind of like an asterisk, that means that there's no school, like a holiday, but we're still going to have the investments be calculated. All right, so for our purposes, remember we're going to use this basket, if you will. So I'm going to type in 5.2 right here, 5.2, and that's going to give me my new total. So I invested 800. There's a return of 5.2, and boom, this student now has $841.60. So right here for the notes, I'm just going to type in borrowed. Oh, excuse me, not borrowed. We're going to say invested $800. And this is really important, is we want to have a note section, and every line should have a note. All right, so week B, as in boy, or let's say week 2, they're going to invest another 500. So here's how to do that. I'm going to basically take this amount and I'm going to add 500. So how you do that is you go equal sign. I'm going to click on this plus 500. So this basically means that, hey, equals means I'm going to have some type of mathematical operation. G10 means I'm going to take thing in G column G as in giant and 10. I'm going to add 500. So that's what I have so far. 841 plus 500 is 1,341. All right, so our interest rate, let's see where we're going to get that. Again, right there, 12.32. And this changes each week, just a heads up. So as you notice, you can kind of see it changes. 12.32, 12.32. All right, so if you notice, we have a different amount. We started for week B with 1,341, our interest rate, and now we have $1,506.89. So our note is we're going to do this. Our previous total we reinvested. That means that this total, this $841.60, we reinvested, meaning we just left it in there. And we also additional, let me move out of the way. Additional 500 was invested. So this tells like any onlooker of this spreadsheet says, okay, they reinvested that previous total, and then they the student invested another $500. All right, so let's do week C is in cat, or week 3. We're going to do the same thing, and in this week, nothing is going to happen, and the student will not invest anything else. So we're just going to go equal sign, take that new total, click on that, press enter. Interest rate, where do we find that? Our weekly returns of investments. It's a negative now, so negative 3.78. So I'm going to type in negative 3.78, and then you see how the total went down. And again, we didn't do anything, but we still are going to write the previous total was reinvested. This just says, hey, we just left the money in there. That's just like a fancy way of saying that. All right, this last example, week D, as in dog, we are actually going to withdraw some money. So let me show you how to do that. Let's take our new total from the previous week, hit enter. Our interest rate, we're going to get here. Now it moved on to 11.72. 11.72. And now we want to withdraw $300. So how are we going to do that? So I'm kind of focused right here. Here's this really kind of complicated equation. I'm going to put my mouse right there and type in minus 300. That basically means that I'm going to withdraw 300. So I'm going to subtract 300. So I'm going to type in previous total reinvested and $300 withdrawn. There we go. All right, so that's the investment sheet. Let's move on to retirement. So as you notice, it looks like a different color, but kind of the same format. Let me move myself down here. So this is the retirement spreadsheet. The first thing you'll kind of notice is, okay, there's a traditional and Roth IRA. And what we're going to do is this. We're going to figure out kind of which one the student chose. And the student, let's say, again, it'll say it in the Co-Teach University My Kids Bank account. But let's just say that the student chose, let's just say they chose a Roth IRA. So let's make this like that. And the differences between the two are right here. All right, so let's kind of go through this. We're going to do the exact same thing. What happened is we want to invest $800. That interest rate is actually the same interest rate as here. So you won't have to kind of look at, you won't have to look at a new spreadsheet. So 5.2. And then again, we're going to do the notes is we're going to say invested $800. Same thing here. Oops, not that. Click on that. And again, same exact kind of scenarios as the investment one. Add 500. So I want to point out when people invest more money, we're going to add. This interest rate comes from here, 12.32, 12.32, and same thing. Previous total reinvested, and see invested. Oh, you can't see. Here we go. Invested $500. Cool. And here we go. Same thing. Next week, we're going to take that, hit enter. Interest rate will come from here. Third week, negative 3.78, negative 3.78. Oops, negative 3.78. And then nothing happened in terms of investing, so we're just going to say previous total reinvested. And finally, this person wants to withdraw money. Now, just a heads up, the tax person is involved here because there's a lot of tax implications here. So when, I guess, the tax person tells you how much to withdraw, that's how much you can withdraw. So for our case, we're just going to withdraw 300, like the other example. So here, 11.72, bingo, and previous total reinvested, $300 withdrawn, done. Now, if you notice, this looked exactly like the investment. Pretty much this and that are the same. And that's pretty much the case because we're using the same returns and the same basket of goods, if you will. So if they chose 75-25 for investment, that will also be their case for their retirement. So we can use the same interest rates. All right, so all you debt bankers, let's try this. This is our credit card spreadsheet. And just a heads up, a student can borrow money with a credit card to pay for rent, taxes, life cycle, the luxury chair or luxury chairs or other government items, or buying something from a business. Here's kind of like the easy thing, if you will, about the credit card spreadsheet is the interest rate stays the same throughout the whole spreadsheet. So you won't need to go back and forth and check the interest rate. And this will be only for credit cards. So right here, student loan mortgage will have different interest rates. So let's go through kind of like the scenarios. So let's just pretend that a student wants to borrow 800. So what that means is, hey, this interest rate of 16%, 16.1 is that now they owe 928, right? Borrow or borrowed $800. All right, so what's going to happen is week 2, they get paid. There's more money, so they feel like they need to pay off their debt. So here's what's going to happen. We're going to go equals and take that new total because that week 2, that's our new total. And they made a payment of $350. Now, if they made a payment of $350 towards their debt, we're going to use subtraction. That means they owe less money because they paid towards their debt. So that is what's going to happen. We're actually going to do minus 350. Again, that 16.10 stays the same. And here, we're just going to write made payment of $350. All right, week C, let's pretend they don't do anything. They don't make a payment. They just, take that new total right there. And again, it automatically kind of calculates that for you. So for the notes, no payment. And again, please write notes in every single one, every single week. And finally, that 4th week, they made a payment of $75. So here's take our new total. And again, we're going to subtract 75 because they made a payment of 75. And there we go. Made payment of 75. So that's how to do the credit card. Let's move on to student loan. So student loan looks exactly similar to all the other spreadsheets. The only difference is that there's a purpose for this, and the only thing that students can use this student loan spreadsheet is to pay for tuition. So the tuition is $5,000. Students can borrow the whole amount of $5,000 or just borrow some, but let's just pretend that this student is going to borrow the whole $5,000. So amount borrowed is $5,000. The interest rate will stay the same, just like the credit card, but there's going to be a different interest rate, and that interest rate is actually the federal rate as of August 2016. And so here's our kind of new total, and we're going to write here borrowed $5,000. All right, so the week 2, the student feels like, okay, I got paid, so let's kind of pay down the debt. So our new total is going to be this. So I'm going to go new total. I'm just going to click on that. And they paid $500. So I'm going to subtract $500. And then going through the interest rate, that's their new total. So here they can say they paid $500. Week 3 or week C, if you will, there's no payment. So we're going to click on that, and then that's how much. So here, no payment. And then finally in week D, they paid another $350. So we'll equal sign here, minus 350, and that is that. So you're going to say paid 350. So that's how to do the student loan portion. And finally, last but not least, is the mortgage. So students can only borrow money with a mortgage to buy their desk. Same thing as a credit card student loan, it kind of stays the same. So 2.85% is going to be our interest rate. And we got that because that's the current rate for a 15-year fixed rate mortgage, according to bankrate.com. All right, so let's pretend a student borrowed $6,000. So we type that in. So we can say borrowed $6,000. The next week, they like, oh, I want to pay some of this down. So they want to pay $400. So we're going to say equal sign. We're going to borrow this. We're going to subtract $400. We're going to subtract because they made a payment towards the debt. There we go. So we go made payment of $400. And next is third week. They didn't make any payments at all. So I'm just going like this, equals, take that, press enter, and then that, I'm going to write no payments. And finally, they made another payment of $350. So I'm going to equal sign here, minus $350. Bingo was the name of, and made a payment of $350. All right. So that's how to work the investment debt spreadsheet. I know it was a lot. If you have questions, it's actually all right here. This is going to be staying up there for every single tab. So if you ever need kind of a refresher, it's right there. All right. So things to remember as you kind of walk away from this. I know it was kind of a longer video. Is for your task, you're going to visit the CoTeach University Google Classroom. You'll find 3 student investment and debt spreadsheets. And if you get the job, you'll actually have access to a shared folder with all of our students' investment and debt spreadsheets. All right. These 2 tabs are investments, and these 3 tabs are debt. So the investment and debt spreadsheet has basically all of them. So just keep that in mind. Also, another thing to keep in mind and remember is for the investments, the interest rate changes. And we do kind of check those interest rates by looking at the weekly returns of investments spreadsheet. However, for debt, the interest rate stays the same. And these are the interest rates for the particular the debts. For investments is this. If you are if you are investing additional money, make sure to add whatever money they're investing. For example, here's 500. Add that 500 here in this column, in the amount invested column. If they're investing and they have an investment and they want to withdraw money, you're going to subtract money from the new total column. Debts. When a student kind of makes payments to their debt, you actually want to subtract their amount from the amount borrowed. So this will be, for example, they made a payment of 500. You would take that number and you would subtract 500. And last but not least is please, 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 whether you're an investment or debt banker, please write a note in each week. It just allows the student and anybody else to understand what kind of you did. And to conclude, a quote from Nathaniel Hawthorne: "Accuracy is the twin brother of honesty, inaccuracy of dishonesty." Thanks for watching.